Well, I think where clarity fails us is when we feel stuck, that we have to commit to something forever.
Hmm.
And it's very hard to commit to something if you think you have to do it for the rest of your life. So when you're
Yes.
thinking of an offer, if you know you can solve a problem and you're inspired today to solve that problem, choose that, knowing that you can change your mind tomorrow or even next week. You can solve a different problem. And
Hmm.
rather than thinking, oh, but for each problem, I need a webinar funnel and I need Facebook ads and I need a website and I need to build an empire just to solve one problem. You don't need to do any of that. So the way that I help people do business is being free and light and not getting bogged down with all of the shoulds. And that is what helps you get better clarity because it's about who you are right now.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Today is special. It's a special treat because the person I have virtually in front of me, she's just going to blow your mind. Uh, Not too often I get the guests that I have a personal connection with, and when I do, just like this one, Jessica, uh, we connected, but it's also we're spiritually aligned. Like I get people, but I don't know their practices, their faith, and I respect whatever they practice. But sometimes you meet people that you also know their spiritual line, then you have, uh, you know, a different kind of alignment. So that's what I have with Jessica, and I'm so happy that she accepted to be here. Uh, I got to know her through one of the coaching programs I did, and she's been focusing on the copy side of it. If you don't know copy, stay tuned. This is why you are here today. She's just gonna take you away with her journey and her work. So welcome, Jessica, and I will just look forward how this transpires.
Thank you, Manpreet. It's so good to be here.
Amazing. See, with that just voice, how can you not fall in peace with that voice immediately? So let's start with your journey so that people get a little bit about your background, how you started your career and what copy is, and then we'll get into actual pieces of your work.
Sure. Well, I've been a copywriter professionally now, helping coaches, mostly coaches, create messaging that really speaks to their ideal clients so that the people that they are selling to feel seen and heard and known and feel inspired to say yes to enrolling in that coaching program and taking advantage of all the gifts that these coaches have to offer. Um, and I've been writing my whole life, and I really had no idea that I could do copywriting. I thought all writers were starving artists. So I just tried my best to have other businesses and things to make money. I was a coach at one point. I was trying to coach women. Before that, I did psychic readings for a living, which I know for a lot of people is kind of out there, but I always felt very intuitive. And so I wanted a way to use my intuitive gifts. And I began offering people tarot readings, which um, were fun and I thought would help give people clarity. So I have a lot of experience with counseling and just trying to help people feel better. And I learned so much about human nature from doing that. And even before that, I was looking for answers. I went and sat at the feet of spiritual teachers. I was always looking for answers to what are we doing here? What is life all about? What's our purpose? Who am I? What do I really want? Those kinds of questions. And it's been a crooked road, and it's led to a career in copywriting, helping healers, helping coaches and teachers do the work that they feel called to do and helping them express it in a way that lets people understand what it is that they're trying to do.
Mm, so good. I was just, as you were saying it, I was visually following through like the journey. And even though I didn't know you back then, I could see your uh, different phases of your journey visually. And it's crazy that I, walked through that journey as you spoke. So that's good. You mentioned you help with the copy, and I take it just like for myself, before I went into coaching, I didn't know what copy was. And there are other aspiring people who are technical like me and do not understand what copy is, even though it's a really legitimate profession now, but a lot of people don't know. For them, could you explain what copy means?
Yes. So copy is your message. It is the message that you deliver to the world. It's the words in writing, either on your website or in a blog post or in a social media post. That is what copy is. It's the message. It's really the heart of what you offer and who you're speaking to. And if you know those things, if you know exactly who you're speaking to, what their frustrations are, what they need, and what they need to hear or read in order to recognize you as the expert that they've been seeking their entire lives, that is that's copywriting.
And you mentioned through your journey, like when you were searching, you had this question prior to getting into finding your actual calling, your gift, which is copy. You went through a phase where you were searching through the spiritual mediums and finding, and I think we all have, or rather than saying we all have that desires or that pull towards those questions and getting those questions answered, but not too many people go to find those answers. Um, but we all have. And so, from your own journey, if I may go on the spiritual side a little bit before we get into the personal side, what did you find out? Like, why do we have such a pull toward finding who we are versus what world is always defining us as engineers, doctors, whatever it is? We still have that pull. Like for myself, I've been in IT, but I still question it every now and then. What is, like, who am I? What is my purpose? What am I doing? So, were you able to find any answers from there?
Yes. I think for all of us, no matter how different we are, and our journeys are all different, we all go through a process when we are born on this planet where we come into being here with pure awareness. And as soon as we're old enough to read the signs around us, our parents begin downloading their perspective, their dream, their ideas and beliefs about what's right and wrong, good and bad, and what's right and wrong, good and bad about us. And so we learn to see the world in a particular way. And the journey of life for all of us is about forgetting the divinity within us and then remembering it. So when we're born, we are that. We don't need to remember. We just are. We are the divine. We are intuitive. We know what we like. We know what we don't like. And then we get conditioned or domesticated and we become something that's not exactly authentic to who we are. And it causes a lot of suffering. And that suffering is what propels us to seek answers to life. Why am I not happy? Why can't I achieve what I think I want? And so we go on journeys to try to figure that out and get answers. And what we end up doing is remembering who we really are in that process. We let go of the things that our parents downloaded into our minds that don't serve or resonate. And that I have found is the quintessential human journey from birth to death. It's a constant cycle repeating of forgetting and then remembering, and redefining, expressing who we really are based on what we choose to believe for ourselves. So it's quite fascinating. It's almost as if life is an opportunity to express and be who we choose to be based on who we were when we came, but also based on what we choose from the suffering that occurred. So that sounds a little bit long-winded, but I think that seems to be the journey of just about everybody.
Yes, it's so profound. It reminded me of a quote from Ramdas in one of his talks. He says that um, you never create anything, you just remember.
Mm.
So, all of the time we feel that, oh, I just created this. Oh, you didn't. You just remembered it. You forgot. And going back to your point that we are in this cycle of forgetting and that remembering. That is
Mm.
beautiful. I'll remember it. Now it makes sense. Now Ram does make sense with that.
I
Amazing.
think we do it because it gets boring after a while. If you always remembered, if you always knew who you were and you never forgot, there would be a certain type of stagnation. And so there's like a desire to go on another journey. It's like a game in a
Mm.
way.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. If we didn't forget, we'll miss the challenge. It's just like adversity. If there was no adversity, we'll miss the challenge. It will get boring without that challenge. So as you, took, pivoted from your career and then into the spiritual side of seeking, finding who you were, and then actually finding your gift. You know, you mentioned as when we talked previously that initially you thought this was it, that spirituality was their path, and that is where because you felt whole with it, and you thought that was it, and later you came into realization maybe that is not it. um, could you talk about that, like how it happened for you? Because a lot of people go through that. Like I am in similar situations where I have these gifts and I think maybe this is it or maybe this is it. I'm trying to figure out what is the gift that is just for me to offer as a gift versus what is a gift that I can use to make a difference with people and also living with it.
It can be confusing because we're always changing. We're always evolving. And so we might choose something in the moment that feels right and that resonates. And then even after just a few months, it doesn't resonate anymore. And I find with a lot of business owners, the biggest struggle they have is trying to choose their niche and what they're actually doing because they outgrow it so quickly. They teach some classes and then they're like, okay, I'm done. What's next? And then they feel like they're not finding their path, but they're on their path. They're just evolving into greater and greater things. And for me, um, I was doing the psychic readings and the business model was very draining. I had to work really hard to get enough clients every month to pay the bills. And also, the work itself was draining because people would be bringing me all their problems, and I would take that on. I didn't mean to, but there's a part of me that's very empathic, and I would just end up taking on the energy of their issues. And I would often feel when I got off the phone with someone like very heavy, and uh, I didn't know how to not do that after a while. And so I started to struggle because it was a financial struggle as well. I kept doing it because I thought if I'm not healing people or if I'm not a spiritual teacher, then my life has no value. I had this belief system and this judgment that if you were doing good, quote unquote, work in the world, your life had value. But if you were simply just existing and doing something to make money, then that wasn't enough. And what happened was I let that belief go. And I realized that if I really listened to what I wanted was to write. I didn't want to do readings. I didn't want to counsel people, which was crazy because I had never had those thoughts before. And it challenged my whole identity and how I had defined myself. And I had to be willing to let that go in order to embrace who I really was inside, which was just the truth was I wanted to write. But I resisted that because as I said before, I thought that writers were starving. I didn't think you could make a living as a writer. So, so I held on to that business for too long. And when I finally did let it go, it was through the pandemic where my business just also, I think energetically, when you're not aligned with what you're doing, your business doesn't flourish. Customers don't come to you. So my business was doing worse and worse. And then the pandemic hit, and then it just tanked. And luckily, I was able to qualify for unemployment benefits at the time, even as a self-employed person. And so that gave me a minute to breathe and ask myself what I really wanted. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to make a choice to do writing and specifically copywriting, because a year previous to that, I had bought a copywriting course and I thought it was fascinating. I was drawn to it, but I only got halfway through with it because I was trying to make a living and hustle, and I didn't really have time to figure that out, or so I thought.
Amazing. Do you remember the moment when you made the decision, like copy was it? Like it's time to move or pivot from the spiritual business to the copy business, or at least attempt on taking a leap into that side?
Yes, I remember I had discussed it with my husband, and he's like, yeah, that sounds great. Go for it. But in my head, I was thinking, well, how am I going to do this? It's probably going to take a while to get clients and all of this. But I was telling a friend of mine who was in a business group with me
Mm-hmm.
and for coaches, and she happened to mention my name to her business group. And within
Mm-hmm.
24 hours, I had my first copywriting client. So
Wow.
I didn't have to struggle to get people. It happened so easily, effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened because I was so in alignment with the decision to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's because as I was listening to you, I was thinking about, like, sometimes we make, we sort of hold on to the things that, okay, this is not it. I want to make it happen. Because a lot of time we have heard this thinking, don't quit, just keep on going. But you have to find that balance, that dance where it's not working and you have to let it go. And we always remember, people think that people change, it takes time to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think you change in the moment. The moment you decide, you change. It takes time to the results to show up, but the decision happens in moment. And sometimes it may take a while to get to that decision. But once you make that decision, it's like a momentary thing. It just
Yeah.
happens. And
Yeah. It took me,
sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. Oh,
No, no,
it
go
did.
ahead.
It took me years to arrive at that decision. And when I finally made it, it was instantaneous, the change, the
Mm,
things falling into place. I got that client, and then she gave me a raise within months, and my writing got better and better. I started studying copywriting, and then I got more clients, and it was referral based at first. And then I learned how to get clients organically through posting on social media, and it just grew and grew. So
Mm. This is amazing. Two key things. One, that when your gifts are aligned with where you should be going, it just happens. It seems effortlessly. Like it's not like you didn't put effort, but it becomes effortless because you're not forcing it to happen. And the second thing is a lot of people, when they reach there, they stop doing the things that got them there. Like for yourself, you were learning to copy, right? You were constantly learning more, and as you got clients, you started even doing deeper things with it so that you can improve. A lot of people stop there, so I think it's a great tip for anybody who is trying to do something. Once you get there, just keep pouring into yourself. Otherwise, you will become dry and it will become boring again.
yeah, and also when you're listening to that voice inside that tells you what you really want, and chances are it's because you're good at that thing and you can become the best at that. You aren't going to be mediocre. And so you'll naturally want to get better. It won't be like forcing yourself to sit down and make yourself learn so that you're not an imposter. It'll just come across as, I must learn this. I love this. I want to be the best, not because I'm supposed to be so that other people like me, but just because it's in my DNA to be the best.
Yeah, yeah. When a lot of time, I find, and at least for myself personally, I've questioned when I started to transition from my 9 to 5 that I wanted to do, do something different, make an impact, make a difference. I always said, like, it's not about the money. That I want to do something, it's not money. I want to make money out of it, but it's not about the money. And sometimes I've questioned that balance where it's, you have spiritual side of the things that you're wanting to do it more for the bigger things than the money. But then the reality is, for you to survive, you also need the money. And sometimes I get lost. I don't know if you feel the same, but balancing between, okay, I want to do the spiritual side, which is my calling or whatever you want to call it, but I also need money. Like I struggle with that part, like, embracing the money side of it.
It can be hard because of how we're conditioned to think about money. But if we decide that money is part of the spiritual piece and it's not separate, if the money is, because the money is what will allow you to make a bigger difference in the world. You can be a philanthropist. You can do wonderful things when you have the money. And so to not think of your helping people, to not separate the financial piece out of it, like, of course you need to survive, but it'd be better to thrive, to really thrive and be able to serve more. For instance, if you charge top dollar for your services, which I do, I'm expensive as a copywriter. I know that I'm going to be able to have the time freedom and the money freedom to produce things for people who can't afford my services, to give them resources that move the needle for them in big ways, or to donate money to a cause that I really care about. Whereas if I keep my prices low and I have less time because of that, and I'm exhausted and burnt out, then I don't have the power to give, to be a force for good the way I want to be.
Yeah. I never saw the money as a part of the spiritual journey itself. I always saw it that separation, and maybe that separation is that causes the confusion and pain at times, and keeps money at a distance.
Yes, yes. Well, we're taught to feel guilty about the money. We're taught to feel like we're greedy, we're being greedy, and we're taking from people who don't have enough. My dad used to believe, he taught me about money, and he really believed that this is a zero-sum world, that there are finite resources and only so much to go around. And if you're wealthy, you are literally robbing other people of what they need. And he said this over and over and over again. And we were very poor growing up. We struggled. He resisted having a career. He didn't want to make money because he felt that he would be taking from people in need. And really, when you think about the most generous people on earth, they're the wealthiest because they can be. So it took a lot for me to change my thinking around money. I wanted my dad to love me. And so I thought, well, I should be struggling. And shortly before he died, it was maybe a year before he died, I called him and I said, Dad, I want to know that if I start making $20,000 a month, that you will still love me. Is it okay? I want to know your opinion. Do you think that it's greedy if I make that money? And he said, oh my God, no, I want you to be happy. And he did say, as long as you don't get greedy. And I said, well, what does that mean? Because I need to define what that is. I said, are there some charities you would like me to give to if I get that kind of success? And he said, yes. And he told me the charities that he really cared about. And I said, okay, so then I've got your permission then? And he's like, absolutely, go for it. And then he died. And this month was the first month that I crossed $20,000 a month. And I felt him blessing me. And I know we can't always get permission and we don't need permission, but I felt like knowing that I wanted him to be proud of me. I didn't want to feel, I knew that would hold me back if I thought that he was judging me for being greedy. So I needed to hear it from him. And I got that permission from him and I never looked back. I feel like that helped with that main money block that I had.
Wow, that is beautiful. And congratulations on crossing that
Thank you.
Milestone. It is beautiful in so many ways. Like, yes, we all have that validation or permission, especially from parents, and there is just not right or wrong. It is what it is, right? If you have that, get it from them, and especially when you recognize that, okay, if it doesn't happen, I'll get stuck. So I think knowing where you get stuck is equally more important. So when you moved, when you talked about all those money beliefs where it just were beliefs that were keeping you and the family poor in a lot many ways. When you identified those beliefs have to change, are there certain steps, one or two things that you can share that people who are, if they are in the similar phase of life where they have been raised, which most of us have been, about wrong beliefs about money, what could be one or two beliefs that about the money that can change and make the difference?
One or two beliefs. Let's see. I've often heard it said that money is energy. Everything is energy. And so if you think of it as energy, you're asking for an exchange of energy for your services. And if time, when you think about time, like we often think of money as our most important resource, but it's really time. Because time you can never get back, where money you can earn it back. So if you know that time is your most valuable, precious resource, if you spend time on your business or time helping someone achieve their goals through your service, that's time you'll never get back. And so you're charging for this very precious resource that is finite. That, and it has to have a price tag. You have to come up with something it's priceless, really. But if you think of it that way, it allows you to charge more. And also, if you think of the value that you provide over someone's lifetime, if they sign up for your coaching program or your service, that value is going to keep growing for them and compounding over time. And it's quite a lot. So just to think of it that way, as the energy of what they will be able to experience in the future because they worked with you, that's a great way to look at it. Another great thing that just always worked for me was thinking about the different things I would do if I had a lot of money. Who would I help? How would I help them? Where would I want to send money and, to make a difference? What would make me feel good? And then those goals, to strive for those. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
it does. It's all about how you look at whatever it is, whether it's money, whether it's your business, whether it's your job. Your thoughts are going to become reality ultimately, right? Where the way you look at it. And I think the first step, really important, is just getting aware of what are you thinking about the things, whatever it is, whether it's money or profession or work. And that's basically where it starts. So
it's hard.
Sorry?
It's hard because, even though I made the money that I wanted to this month, I found myself shopping the other day for some things for the house. And all of a sudden, I felt bad, like really bad. Like, oh my God, I've become one of those people who just shops, and I'm shallow and greedy. And this is, I went there. I went back to that old conditioned place of, I'm living a meaningless existence. I'm just a consumer. Like, oh, it was awful. And then I remembered, oh, that's part of the conditioning that I got as a kid. So it never ends. Even as you hit these milestones, you go to deeper levels where that story is lodged within you, and you work to change it. So it's not comfortable making a lot of money when you don't feel worthy, or you're blocking it. There's a sense of discomfort. So I'm still dealing with pieces of that.
Yeah, and I think we all are, who, especially people that are new into those journeys. I remember a year and a half ago, when I started the business, I wanted to invest into a new computer, microphone, and microphone and all came very later in the game. But starting with the computer, it was just like $1,000 investment. I wouldn't even call it investment. And I remember I justified myself for weeks and weeks and weeks. Okay, I should buy it, because I was like, okay, I have another laptop. Why do I want different? I can use it. And I kept it, oh, it doesn't have camera. It doesn't have this. I should be separating. And then in a moment I realized I'm just spending way too much to justify it. Why am I afraid to spend $1,000? It's not like I have to borrow from somebody. I have the money sitting in the bank doing nothing. Like, the interest rates in the bank, 1%. It's not going to make money. It's just depreciating in the value. And yet I had to justify for weeks to make that purchase. But in the moment as I got aware, I was like, okay, hit that button. If I don't invest, I cannot even get ahead. But it's still cycle. Every time I make an investment, I have to, I don't know who I'm justifying, but I am justifying to those false beliefs that, oh, this is why I should spend. It's crazy. It's, as grown up, nobody's asking those questions, but we are still answering those questions.
Yeah.
So amazing. So moving from your spiritual side to now to your copy business, as you moved, one of the things I realized in last year and a half, it's as you grow, and as your consciousness grows, you attract a different kind of people, like the people in your life start to change also. This is perfect example. 2 years ago, I would never have met Jessica because I was not there consciously. I could not attract you into my life. Did you see anything when you started getting after moving from a spiritual side into the business that you started to attract a different kind of people, and what did you feel about that?
So the attracting new people began when I made my first really big investment in my business. I was struggling for so many years to make a living as an entrepreneur. And I knew that I needed to invest, but I was afraid. And my husband was also like, I don't understand. Do people do this? They spend thousands of dollars that they don't have to learn about business. And I would say, yes, that's what people do. And finally, I managed to come to an agreement with him where I just said, all right, listen, I want to try this and I'm going to pay the money back in 6 months. And if it doesn't work, if it fails, I won't attempt anything like this again. And he's like, all right. So this was my first like really high ticket business program. And this was when I was trying to be a coach. So I made an $8,000 investment. And at the time, I'd never spent that much money in my life on anything. And because it was such a big investment, I was 1,000% committed. I made a decision that this was going to work for me, no matter what. And it did. I did the work. I learned business fundamentals that were never taught. And from that, I was able to make the money back quite quickly. Within 6 months, I did pay it back, and I did make a few $1,000s over that. And I had I had like a 1,500 person email list at the time. And that's when I started to realize that maybe copywriting was going to be better for me, because my favorite part of the business was writing emails to my list. And so from the people on my list, I was able to sell a few of my coaching programs. And so I knew it worked. And then the whole switch came with the copywriting. But then because I knew that investing in the business worked, I then invested in another program where you and I met. I invested with that teacher, and I made that was a $13,000 investment at that point. I learned how to get clients organically without any kind of paid advertising out of that. So that was worth it. And then the people that I met in each space, I forged new connections. We grew. We learned from each other. That's really one of the beauties of making the investments. It's not just that you're learning from the coach. It's that you're getting to know people in the space. And these are people that can open doors for you, people you can network with. So it really does elevate you into a community of others that have the same goals. It helps you stay accountable. It's just really, that was my experience anyway. I should say it helped me stay accountable, and it brought me into a higher realm of contacts.
That's amazing. The couple of things that I want to sort of unwrap from there, because you said it very quick, but one of the first thing is investing in ourselves. And when we invest big, we have to be sensible where we invest, but when we invest big in terms of the money, it does something to commitment. It increases the commitment, especially if you're investing with the money you don't even have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's big. And the second is communities and getting in, in front of the people, like-minded people, because proximity has power, right? There's a reason our mother stopped from playing with that one kid that she didn't think was a good influence, because it was the proximity. So I think that I can vouch for, because my life started to change as I started to become conscious of the people I want in my life, what I want to do in my life. the people that I didn't need just started to phase off. Like they still fall off. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, I don't want to work with you. I don't like you. Nothing. It's falling off. And that is the beauty of, I feel like that is the real renunciation, that you don't find the need to keep or let them go. It just organically happens. It just shifts. And so that is amazing.
Yeah.
Coming to coaching the world, right, where so many people, especially in 2020 and 2021, I would say a lot of people started to come out and started to explore what gifts they can use to help others, right? Which is what coaching is. And there's plenty of good ones, and there are plenty of the people who do not even do, they are just there. So when you work with the coaches that you help write copy, what are some of the things that you look for those coaches where you can help them get ahead in their business, make money, climb up in their game?
Well, the coaches that I have begun working for most recently are already established. So they have been in business for a while. They usually have a funnel that's working for them to deliver consistent leads. And then I write their emails for them, which helps them sell. But if you're starting out as a coach, if you've just decided that you want to answer the calling inside you and you want to use your gifts to serve others, what's really important is figuring out, first of all, it's getting clarity on exactly what those gifts are and who it is that you can help. And it's usually a version of yourself. So it's someone going through struggles that you've already figured out how to solve. So the things that you need to know are, who is it you're talking to? What keeps them awake at night? What are they terrified of? What are their dreams and goals? And from that information, you can begin speaking to them from the heart, speaking to them about what their experience of life is. And that's what allows them to see you, to know that you're there, and to choose you as the expert that's going to help guide them. So you just need to have clarity on those pieces. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to get, is the clarity. Because you might have more than one gift. You might have multiple gifts. You might have different interests. And so you're trying to, and of course, in the business world, you're always getting the advice that you need to choose one, pick a lane, niche down, don't try to do too many things. And if you have more than one gift, sometimes they intersect, and sometimes it can be hard to niche down. So I try to help people to be in alignment with the thing that they are choosing, and to incorporate as much of their gifts as they want. So to not feel that limitation, and to not feel that they have to be in a box or a cage, or they have to do business one way. That's just not true. They can do business whatever way they want, as long as they get the message right. And the message is what copywriting is all about. So, and by getting the message right, all I mean is speaking from the heart, having an understanding of who you're speaking to, and how to talk about their problems in a way, talk about the solution that you offer in a way that gets people to raise their hand and say, I need that, I want that. And you can absolutely do it without niching down so that you're like this. You can have a wider scope and a wider focus. It comes down to the stories you tell in your messaging, the different offers that you create. So when I was working with coaches who were starting out, a lot of them didn't have websites. They didn't need website. They didn't need to have that in place. All they needed was the clarity of who it was they were serving with one particular offer. And then they could add other offers. You see, that's the beauty of it. once they knew the process, they could repeat that process over and over with different offers and different clients. So that's a lot, but
No, that's amazing. Like, you were the first one who told me that you don't need a website, because if you don't have a clarity, what is website going to do, right? And a lot of times people, when they start, they jump on all those whistles and bells, good looking website, pictures, logos, and those are important parts of the business, but they are parts of the business. They link to that clarity that, who you are, who you're serving. And if you don't have that clear, then it's going to be a very hard to get any business out from those websites. And you can try 10 different
right.
things, but it's not.
I mean, I've already amended the copy on my website like 8 different times because I keep changing my offers and I keep changing who I'm serving. So you have to go back and change the message. And people aren't finding me through my website. The website is just something to give them like a business card. And I developed that after I was full with clients. So I didn't have the website first. I got the website later. But yeah, you definitely don't need to have any of that in place first. All you need to do is start sharing, start talking to people, start posting if you're on social media or LinkedIn or just your friends and family. Just start talking about what you do, sharing about it, and let things start to build from there. That's why social media can be so powerful as a tool, because it's built for personal connection.
Yes, it's you touched upon having clarity as one of the big things, and sometimes it's harder to get that clarity. But if you were to give one or two things that can help somebody who is fresh on the journey, maybe confused, and they want to develop a little bit of clarity. I know one of the answers is hire a good coach to get you that clarity, but what would be one or two things somebody can do themselves just to get a little bit more clarity on where they are, where they're heading?
Yeah, well, I think where clarity fails us is when we feel stuck, that we have to commit to something forever.
Mm,
And it's very hard to commit to something if you think you have to do it for the rest of your life. So when you're
yes.
thinking of an offer, if you know you can solve a problem and you're inspired today to solve that problem, choose that, knowing that you can change your mind tomorrow or even next week. You can solve a different problem. And
Mm,
rather than thinking, oh, but for each problem, I need a webinar funnel and I need Facebook ads and I need a website and I need to like build an empire just to solve one problem. You don't need to do any of that. So the way that I help people do business is being free and light and not getting bogged down with all the shoulds. And that is what helps you get better clarity, because it's about who you are right now. What do you want to do today?
mm,
What feels in alignment with you today? It may not work in a month, but that's okay. You can still make money this month solving this particular problem. It's really like just creating an offer that can solve a problem and then just going and talking about it on Facebook and filling spots and sending people a PayPal link and having them pay you. I mean, like, you don't need anything to do that. So,
mm.
and then
That,
from that, you learn what works for you, what feels good. Did I love this process or was it draining to me? Do I want to focus somewhere different or add something to the program next month to make it better? What could that be? And then at a certain point, you get to the point where you have too many clients and maybe you want to do a group program instead of a one-on-one program. It really just depends on how you feel in the now.
yeah, that's the most important thing in the now, and not, feeling obliged that commitment is forever. It's not a marriage. Even marriages are not. can be, temporary at times if it's not in alignment. And I think that's where people get stuck and lost. I was the other day I was thinking uh, uh, that I feel lost. I was feeling like I feel lost, and I was telling myself I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and I kept repeating to myself. Obviously, that's one part of it. I'm repeating it constantly, but then I had a realization that I'm not lost. I'm just on a new road, and it's an unknown road, and I just don't know my way out. I have to figure it out as I walk. I cannot just stand still and say I'm lost and wait for somebody to come and take me there. And if that happens, that can be one thing. But the chances are, if I walk and on that road, I'll figure out which way to go. I'll see the signs. So I think you rightly said it. People get stuck because of that one thing, that the commitment is forever. Um, Brilliant. That is
I
beautiful.
love that. I love that you came to that where you realized it's a journey and I'm on the journey and I don't have to have all the answers in this moment. It's just what is moving in you today, what feels right today.
Yes. So, one of the things, as you mentioned with the emails, I was looking at a lot of people might have this misconception that emails do not work. Like from in the digital age we are, in the apps and the social Instagram and all those things that you could do, and DMs you could do. I think email still is a very powerful tool of getting the business and getting your message out. And a lot of people, and including myself, do not take time to build that email list and rely on, Facebook, LinkedIn's, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend in terms of building email lists, and why one should build it and how one should go about it?
Yeah. Well, an email list belongs to you. It's yours forever, or for as long as our society holds itself up and people have, emails. If you're just using social media, which I have definitely done, so it's like you are at the mercy of those companies. So I do the majority of my business marketing on Facebook, knowing that Facebook could suspend my account, something could happen, I could lose that ability to be visible there. And then what? So an email list will never happen. It's yours. It belongs to you. The people on it have already agreed to receive messages from you. So you can offer them things without feeling like you're just spamming everybody, friends and family alike. You can write to that list knowing that they've elected to be there. And if they don't want to be there, they'll unsubscribe. But the people making the most money in my world are the coaches that have really big email lists, because not only are they not only do they have other places where they show up, like social media, but they're making 50% of their income is coming in through sending emails to people. A lot of the copywriters that I follow and study send one email a day to their list, and that's how they are crushing it. It's like when you get on a coach's email list, you might find yourself getting 1 to 2 emails a day from that person. And that's because that's what's shown to be the most effective to enroll people, is to always be writing to them. Some people feel like that's spam and they don't want that and they don't like that. And I totally understand and I don't blame them. But the coaches doing the most money are the ones emailing lists every single day.
I relate to it. So the first time I realized that email is still a big thing is when, I started getting, uh, you know, like likes of Tony Robbins, Andy Frasilla's, and Violets, even though they have so many, such a huge following on social media platform, you name the platform, they have millions of people, they would still ask you to register for their email. And they're sending the same message on the email that is on the social. But I think it's proves the point that there is something that they know, they understand. And one of them has to be that owning, controlling the customer database or holding the people in your own area rather than just relying on the social media platform for your people to be there. But it's so much more marketing, like, for instance, if somebody sends an email, Tony Robbins or any other coach, I might not register or look at it at the same point. But when I hit that problem, I'll go and search that email. Okay, I remember Tony said something about it. I'll go search it. Whereas I cannot search it on social. It's so much harder to get there. But emails instantly, I'll find that one thing, one message that I wanted to listen and go back. So,
Yeah. Email isn't going away. It's not going away. Sometimes I hear people saying, "Oh, email is going to be a thing of the past," and it's just not true. The social media is what people get tired of and say, "Okay, I'm taking a break from social media. I'm out of here," but they're still opening their email. So it's
true.
less overwhelming when it's more personal.
That is so true. All right. This was wonderful. I mean, I had so many great insights out of it. And before I ask you the last question, I want to thank you for your time. I, want to ask you, where can people reach out to you and for what kind of work they can reach out to you if they want to work with you? And then when you answer this, I'll ask the last parting question.
Sure. Well, my website is enlightenedcopy.com. But what I do, there are two offers that I have. One is for coaches who have at least 5,000 people on their email list and they're selling at least a $2,000 service. I'll write their daily emails for them. And so that's one offer. But the other offer is for those coaches that don't have email lists, that are struggling to get clarity, that want to know what it is that they're in alignment with and how to speak about it, how to write about it, how to post about it so that their ideal clients can hear that message and respond. So I have a 4-week coaching program. It's one-on-one for people like that who need that help. And it's $997. So for 4 weeks, we have private one-on-one sessions and whatever. And they get to send me things that I'll edit for them. So
that's a steal. 997 is a steal. Considering the market, considering the value you bring in, it's a steal. So I'll have your link to your website and things like that in the show notes so people can go. But somebody, and whoever is listening, if you fall in one of those two brackets, go check out Jessica's website. Get in touch with her. It may be or may not for you, but I can definitely tell you that if you work with Jessica, she will give everything in her being to make sure it works for you. That's how committed she is, and that's why she's getting the results she is getting. So I am excited for whoever comes through that. All right, last question. If you were to, leave one thing away whenever the time comes, one of the things that you would want people to remember you for when you go on from here to the next world, to the next place, what would be that one thing that, Jessica, you would want people to remember you for?
interesting. When you ask me that, what comes up is I don't feel a need to be remembered, but I want my words, I want my work to have created inspiration. I want the inspiration of the words that I leave behind to continue to have an impact. That's really what I want.
Amazing. And immediately, like when you said those lines, I was reminded of this quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Like what he was going on a train, and there was somebody running back and said, gave him a paper and said, could you write down something as a message for the people to, know about you, learn from you. If something happens to you, what will be the message you will leave behind? And he wrote, "My life is my message." So, feeling that, your work is your message. If what you do inspires others to do something better in their life, I think that is the greatest message you can leave behind.
Yeah.
On that note, it's a mic drop there. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did and got some valuable nuggets out of it. If you liked it, there are other shows you can watch. They're exactly what you need. And I ask you to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the show. Really, I want to hear from you firsthand what you felt, what you liked, what you didn't like. So thank you and see you around.